Elohim, El Shaddai, Chesed, El Elohim. And technically how you end up building forth within the different thought perceptions. The whole idea of transubstantiation is to be able to change the thought patterns you have. Sefer Yetzirah goes into this at a much deeper way to look at it. You can end up seeing how it is that whenever you end up starting to create and to speak this word of God, it ends up being that idea of creation is the emanation of God. If you go into it, furthermore, it was to say, all right, well, I want to be able to build forth God and the actual spirit of him. So as I end up speaking and having that creation, it was to then realize that what I can do is be able to change the way that I think and I perceive. So that as I end up having, for instance, the name of Jesus Christ, what I'm doing is actually welcoming in a part of the vessel of the Spirit of God. So that's the Adonai Yeshua HaMashiach. The whole idea is a cleave, and so it's a vessel is the actual word that they end up having within the Hebrew. It is to be able to look at yourself as being able to see yourself as that vessel of the Sabbath. And so when the cherubim were constantly chanting, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Yahweh Shabbat, then it was to be able to say that you're creating in the same way as all of them did, that Spirit of God. The whole idea of a cherubim is actually it's like a program, like a child or a computer program. And we'll get into that further, but it was to then be able to say that if I want to be able to create an angel that ends up constantly chanting and praising God, it's creating eternally that holiness of God within the heavens. So when you see within Enoch, and it mentions that this is what is created in heaven, it's using the program that God set up to create holiness, to be set aside, to create purity. The same way we can also create that purity, you also see the cherubim that was set forth, where they ended up having their flames with fire, so they could also be set as destroyers. But this was actually the wrath of God. Even building forth in the wrath was another way to change it up, so that you can then see how God's able to build forth this. You can look at it and see how God ends up showing this. So he's able to build it. If you want to build Tikkun, you can show it and be able to see the beauty that God builds all around you, how to have that light, and be able to look at it, for instance, with that whole Elion. And so then having that light of God, so you can change this, look into it, and you're able to then have that different creation. It is in proclaiming the word of God through the spoken word that we end up creating this. Most people haven't looked into the word of God enough to be able to then be able to create that. The whole idea is that as you end up proclaiming Jesus as the Lord through the gospel, you then end up opening up an opportunity for Christ to work through you as that vessel through the Sabbath, and for you to be a channel of the living God. So thus your body becomes the house of the living God, and you then welcome in the Spirit of the living God to work through you. Technically, hi. You didn't even realize that, but even by opening up a conversation and saying hi, you're actually welcoming in the Spirit of the living God to come through and work into that. It's opening up an invitation. The whole idea is to be able to realize how it is that you move through this world within the Spirit, but it is swimming within that Spirit that ends up creating that new opportunity. And so thus, it is to have that praise and new understanding. With that, I want to welcome you to the New Azure Show here in Hollywood, California. Thank God bless.